I never imagined the people who were supposed to protect me would be the ones to destroy me. It was pouring that night, the kind of cold, relentless rain that feels like the sky is punishing you for something you didn't do. I was only 21. Standing in the middle of our living room, my heart hammering so loud I could barely hear the thunder outside. My stepmother, Linda, held up the empty velvet jewelry box like evidence in a courtroom. "You stole it, Ava!" she screamed, her voice sharp as broken glass. Grandmother's diamond and emerald set the one passed down for 4 generations. "I saw you sneaking into her room the week she died." My father just stood there, eyes filled with disappointment so heavy it crushed me. "Ava, how could you? After everything we've done for you." I tried to speak, to beg, to explain that I hadn't touched anything, but the words stuck in my throat. Linda had planted the evidence, a single earring in my drawer, a fake receipt on my phone. She'd been planning this. Grandmother's jewelry was worth hundreds of thousands, and Linda had debts no one knew about. Before I could even cry, Dad pointed at the door. "Pack your things. You're not welcome here anymore." My suitcase was already waiting on the porch. Linda had packed it while I was at work. She shoved me outside. The door slammed shut. Rain hit me like needles. I stood there soaked, suitcase in the mud, staring at the house that used to mean safety. A text buzzed. "Don't come back. Ever. How does your entire world end in 30 seconds? One accusation, one lie, and suddenly I had no family, no home, nothing. I dragged that suitcase through the dark streets. Shoes, squelching, cold, seeping into my bones, until my teeth chattered. That night I slept under a bus shelter, curled into a ball, whispering to myself that tomorrow would be different. It wasn't. The next weeks were pure hell. Couch surfing turned into friends making excuses. The shelter smelled of despair and old coffee. I worked double shifts at the cafe, but every dollar went to food and a cheap motel when I could afford it. Every night the same question haunted me. How do you rebuild when the people who raised you think you're a thief? One freezing evening, scrolling through county auctions on my cracked phone, I saw it. Dilapidated Victorian fixer-upper. Back taxes only. Sold as is for $5. The photos showed a sagging porch, boarded windows, and vines choking the walls like secrets trying to escape. It was 2 hours outside town. Most people would call it a money pit. To me, it looked like a last chance. I used my last paycheck and a tiny emergency loan and hit buy now. The next morning I stood in front of the house, heart pounding. It smelled of damp rot and old memories the moment I pushed the creaky door open. Wind howled through cracks like a warning, but it was mine. For the first time since that rainy night, I wasn't sleeping on concrete. I dragged in an old mattress, hung a single bulb, and told myself I could survive this. The first nights were terrifying. Floorboards groaned like footsteps. Shadows moved in the corners. I'd wake up gasping, flashlight in hand, whispering, "It's just the wind, Ava. Just the wind." During the days, I threw myself into fixing it. I patched the roof with cheap tarps, scrubbed black mold until my hands bled, painted the kitchen a soft sage green that reminded me of grandmother's garden. Slowly, the house started to feel alive again. Then the discoveries started. While prying loose a cracked plaster wall in the upstairs bedroom to fix water damage, my hammer hit something metal. I froze. Behind the lath and plaster was a small, hollow space. I reached in with trembling fingers and pulled out a dusty velvet pouch. My breath caught. Inside lay grandmother's exact jewelry, set the real diamonds and emeralds catching the weak sunlight like fire. Not fakes. The real ones. My knees buckled. Tucked beside it was a yellowed envelope addressed to me in grandmother's elegant handwriting. I sank to the floor, tears already falling as I read. "My dearest Ava, if you're reading this, it means Linda has shown her true colors. I never trusted her. Years ago, I moved the real jewels here. This house I bought in secret as your safety net. The ones in the family safe are clever replicas I had made. She's been stealing pieces and replacing them for months to pay her gambling debts. Keep this pouch safe. It was always meant for you. The truth will set you free. Forgive your father when the time comes. Love, Grandma." My hands shook so hard the paper rustled. There was more, a flash drive with a video. I plugged it into my phone in the dusty room. Grandmother's face appeared, recorded just months before she passed. She explained everything. How she'd watched Linda siphon money. How she'd hidden the real pieces here, so I would have something when the lies finally surfaced. This house was my gift to you, sweetheart. Use it to start over, and to heal what's broken. That was the twist that broke me open. The jewelry I was framed for stealing had never left the family. It had been waiting for me all along in the walls of a $5 house no one knew existed. Linda had been selling the fakes and planning to pin the theft on me so she could disappear with the cash. The next morning, I drove back to my childhood home with the pouch and the video. When Dad opened the door, he looked 10 years older. Linda stood behind him, eyes wide with fear. I didn't scream. I simply played the video on my phone and laid the real jewels on the table. The silence was deafening. Dad's face crumpled as the truth sank in. Linda, what have you done? She tried to deny it, but the evidence was in her hands literally. She broke down, admitting everything. The debts, the fakes, the framing. Dad asked her to leave that same night. We didn't call the police. Instead, we really talked for the first time in years. I told him how the rain felt that night. He cried and begged for forgiveness. I gave it because grandmother had asked me to. Using part of the jewelry's value, we paid off the worst of the debts together. Linda moved away. Dad and I started rebuilding slow Sunday dinners, fixing the old house side by side, learning to trust again. I still live in the little Victorian that once looked abandoned. Only now it's painted warm cream with climbing roses on the porch. The walls that hid my future are strong and safe. At 21, I learned the hardest lesson. Sometimes the family that hurts you the deepest is the one worth saving. And sometimes the place you're thrown out of isn't the end, it's the beginning of the home that was always waiting to protect you. If you're out there tonight, suitcase in the rain, accused of something you didn't do, keep walking. Your hidden truth might be waiting behind the next cracked wall. Thank you for listening to my story. We didn't call the police. Instead, we talked for the first time in years. I told him how the rain felt that night. He cried and begged for forgiveness. I gave it because grandmother had asked me to. Using part of the jewelry's value, we paid off the worst of the debts together. Linda moved away. Dad and I started rebuilding slow Sunday dinners, fixing the old house side by side, learning to trust again. I still live in the little Victorian that once looked abandoned. Only now it's painted warm cream with climbing roses on the porch. The walls that hid my future are strong and safe. At 21, I learned the hardest lesson. Sometimes the family that hurts you the deepest is the one worth saving. And sometimes the place you're thrown out of isn't the end, it's the beginning of the home that was always waiting to protect you.